saying, we're so glad you was able to be with us today. Miss Carol, too. We don't get to see Miss Carol much anymore.
Y'all keep me in your prayers. I've had cancer again. So.
Yes, ma'am. We sure will.
Radiation.
Yeah, we will. We're going to be still be in Job chapter number 2. Job chapter number 2. We have been in Job for several Sundays now. I really don't remember how many, but the Lord has a word for us, and we're going to work through it and see what He has for us today. We're going to be in Job chapter 2, and we're going to start the message today in verse number 7, but I want to recap like I usually do, of what we talked about last Sunday. And last Sunday we started in chapter 2, verse 1, and went through verse 6. And what we find is that there's a second heavenly courtroom type meeting where God demands the presence of the sons of God, and they have to come and present themselves. And we find out in this heavenly courtroom that God's still presiding. He's still over. He's still in charge. The angels are present. Satan is present, but God is ruling. Should give you some comfort. We also see that God provides a testimony of Job yet again. And he repeats the same commendation that he did in chapter 1, but he adds a few things here. He said, and still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. God also mentions Job as my servant. God has taken ownership of Job, the relationship. And we notice that God has a view of his integrity that puts him ahead of everybody else. He said he still maintains his integrity. Your trials may cause people in your life to suspect that you got some sin in your life, but that ain't always the case. See, sometimes God might be putting a trial in your life to show that person that's accusing you falsely of something that God's real and that you're real, and maybe it might change their heart. It doesn't really matter what folks around on earth have to say about you. What does God have to say about you? That's what we need to be worried about. Do we have integrity that still holdeth fast, as Job's did? And then we see in verses 4 and 5 that Satan makes his accusations. Remember, he's the great accuser. He's the accuser of the brethren. That's what he does. And he says that if the Lord will touch his body, that he'll turn on it. Verse 4 says, and Satan saith to the Lord, and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he'll curse thee to thy face. He's challenging him again. He said, he said in chapter 1, the only reason he's worshiping you, and that he serves you, and that he is good to you, is because you've blessed him to death. That's what he said. And then he took everything, and he still worshiped. Still did no sin. Now Satan's saying, well, look, I'll tell you what, I might have been wrong the first time, but I ain't going to be wrong this time. Touch his body, and he'll curse you. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. Satan has a goal, and his goal is destruction. And if he can't destroy you, he wants to destroy your testimony. Because if he can destroy your testimony, you have no touch. You can't touch nobody. He wants you to destroy your testimony. His goal's not changed. His goal is to destroy you or your testimony to keep people out of heaven. I'm going to tell you something. When hard times come, like what happened to Job in chapter 1, you need to, and you're still faithful and you're still worshiping, you need to expect harder times to come. The enemy's real target is your worship and your trust in the Lord. What can he do to take your worship and your trust? But what we should find in verse number 6 that gives us comfort is there's limitation. God's allowing this, but there's boundaries. Satan can only do what God allows him to do. That means that there is a limitation for what you're going through. You need to understand that your suffering is not random. It's supervised. There's always a but. You can do this, but God puts limitations. And we might not see the limitation. We might not think we can handle it to that limitation. But God is not going to put us through something without purpose. He might put you through something that's so much that you can't bear it, but through him you can. Let's get to verse number 7 and 8 today. Y'all should be happy. We're just doing 2 verses today. 2 little old verses. I should be done, real fast. Or not. We'll see. Verse number 7. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sore balls from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal. And he sat down among the ashes. What a picture here. And I hope that by the end of the sermon today, that we can see vividly Job's situation. It's my goal. Sometimes my wife will tell me, or my commentators, I get commentary from folks. They tell me, boy, you painted a picture today. That was a little, and I'm like, well, that's what I'm trying to do. I need you as an individual to be able to put yourself in the situation with Job. I need you to be standing in the room. Well, technically there's no room because he's in the ashes. I need you to be standing with Job in his suffering today. First thing I want you to notice today is the nature of the sore balls. The nature of the sore balls. Sore balls is it's a grievous, it's burning balls that erupt over the whole body. It says sore balls from the sole of his foot, from the sole of his foot to his crown. That means there's no place on his body that does not have these sore balls. From the bottom of his foot to the top of his head, he is covered in these balls. Where have we seen these balls before? Exodus chapter 9, verse 9 and 10. And it shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a ball breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. And it became a ball breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. This same word is used for the plagues in Egypt. The plagues in Egypt were designed, this plague was designed to be so grievous that you couldn't focus on anything else but what's going on around you. Now, if you remember, I ain't got time to preach it, but the magicians of the Pharaoh were able to do some things that Moses was able to do. But it says in chapter 9, verse 11, that the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the balls on their body. Took away their ability to stand. This speaks of intense, disabling pain. In Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 27, it says, the Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt. The botch that cannot be healed. This is the balls. That's what it's referring to. And with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. Now, this same ball is being described in Deuteronomy 28, verse 27, and in verse 35. It says, with a scab and with an itch whereof thou canst be healed. You ever had an itch you can't scratch? It's miserable, right? But this itch is not just an itch, it's pain. It says it cannot be healed. There's no escape. Deuteronomy 28, verse 35 says, the Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed from the sole of thy foot to the top of thy head. Job's sore balls, it's not a rash. Don't think that this is a rash, and don't think that this is a bump. We're talking about something's got some size on it. And they have come up all over his body. And they have pressure behind them. And they're bursting. And it's a continuous process of this eruption, this burst, this constant pain. These sore balls, they're violent, they're spreading. It's a disease of the skin. They're constantly breaking open. They're oozing. There's no healing. Now you got to keep in mind, when this happens to Job, he is in this specific shape until the end of Job. So, Job 2, when this happens to him, all the way to Job 42, he's got these balls. I couldn't imagine dealing with these balls. I don't like having a bump. Anybody ever get one bump somewhere and you can't leave it alone? He was covered with them. That's the nature of the balls. Let's look at the extent and the appearance of these balls. From the sole of his foot unto his crown. There's no part of his body was spared. No part of his body was spared. He can't stand. He can't sit. He can't lay down. There's no position that doesn't hurt. And while he is hurting, he's itching. And he's hurting. Every posture hurts. Now, I'm going to read a few scriptures here to you later on in Job where he's describing his feelings from these balls. Job chapter 7, verse 5. My flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin is broken and become loathsome. Now, what happens when the balls cover you? Well, we've seen where dead flesh is attacked by maggots. That's what he's talking about here. So, he's hurting, and he's itching, and now the maggots are getting after him. Could you imagine your body being covered with maggots, eating your flesh as it rots away? I'm telling you, Job was going through something. Job 30, verse 17, my bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. His bones. This pain is in his bones. He ain't just hurting on his skin. We're talking about in his bones. His sinews, what is connecting the bone, his joints are in pain. It says, my sinews take no rest. His bones are hurting. When it says my bones are pierced, that means it's the idea of a sword stabbing into his bones. That's the pain. His sinews, his joints take no rest. Job chapter 30, verse 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. He's got a fever so bad it feels like his bones are on fire. Are you with me yet? Job's in bad shape. Job is in bad shape. Nobody here today has felt what Job is feeling right here. Nobody. First, if you back up to chapter 1, Job loses an empire. He loses his future. And then he loses his family. And then he loses his ability to worship. Yet what does he do? it says he stood up, shaved his head, rent his mantle, and fell down and worshiped. It's the idea of him going flat on his face to worship. And I'm telling you right now that if I lost what Job lost, I'd have a hard time falling on my face and worshiping. Yet, it wasn't over. So not only has he lost it all, now he's lost his health. You ever been in a situation where you can't find relief? Well, Job has an intense fever where he's feel like that he's on fire on the inside. His pain is like he's being stabbed with a sword into his bone. His joints are in pain, and he's got these balls all over his body that are bursting, and now the maggots has got on him. Could you imagine? Sounds like some major pain and suffering. His sores are open and festering. The worms are on him, these maggots. And he's trying to find relief. He's rolling around in the dust, these ashes. He said that his skin is black upon me. It's the black is from the ash. So, think about this. So we got maggots. We've got these oozing balls, but now his skin's black. Why is his skin black? Because everything is burned up. His life, everything about him is burned up. He's in the ashes, remember? He's laying in the pile of ashes where he used to have a home and a family and an empire. And now those ashes are sticking to him. So when he looks down and he sees his body, he's looking at what once was. It's ash. So he does not have anything, any possession, and he does not have his health. His skin's discolored and broken. His whole body's burning with fever. The pains in his bone and his sinews. Where's the relief? There's not any. I'm not going to preach this far into it today, but I do want to mention that he looks so bad that his oldest friends don't recognize him. Job chapter 2, verse 12 says, "And when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not," his oldest friends did not know him. They didn't recognize him. He looked that bad. He was so unrecognizable. They didn't know him. They lifted up their voice and wept and rent every one his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads towards heaven. They looked at him, and when they realized it was him, they were so hurt for him that they cried, rent their mantle, put dust on their head, and fell down. That's how bad they felt about what he looked like. He's in bad shape. The balls are swelling, and they're bursting. The disfigurement is so much on him that his friends didn't recognize him. Could you imagine? A loathsome condition is what he says. There's a parallel found in Psalms chapter 38. I'm going to paraphrase a few of these verses here. It says, "There is no soundness in my flesh because of thine anger. My wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. For my loins are filled with a loathsome disease, and there is no soundness in my flesh." David is writing right here when he's in sin. And the same word that's used to describe his condition, where he says, my loins are filled with a loathsome disease, he's talking about his wounds stinking and his corruption. There's no soundness in my flesh. That same word is used here that Job used in chapter 30. Chapter 7, I'm sorry. So, we have balls, they're bursting. We have immense fever. We have immense pain. We have maggots. Now, does dead flesh smell good? Does the infection, the pus that comes out, does it smell good? No. He's covered with it. Well, I bet he smells just great. Foul smell, corruption, total bodies breaking down. That's the kind of torment he's in. I couldn't imagine. Every time we talk about another step of Job's journey, I always say I can't imagine because I can't. I'm trying to help you understand where he's at, but you can't really imagine what he's going through. Now, keep in mind, this is the man that God said is perfect and upright. Job didn't know God said that, though. Let's talk about the experience of his pain. First, we notice the nature of the boils and then the extent of the appearance of his boils. But let's look at the experience of his pain. He was in constant, unrelenting suffering. Constant. You ever felt bad and you needed some relief? What do we like to do when we feel bad, we need some relief? We go climb in the bed, don't we? Cut the lights off, climb in the bed. Job chapter 7, verse 4. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise and the night be gone? And I am full of tossing to and fro unto the drawing of the day. When he lays down for relief, he's wanting to know when he can get up. There is no relief. Laying down don't help. Job chapter 30, verse 17, we quoted it before. My bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. There is no comfort. So, what are we saying here? I'm saying that his bodily pain is so much he can't take it. Okay? But what happens when we deal with that immense bodily pain? We look for relief. We want to sleep. Don't we want to sleep? I know I do. But he can't sleep. So not only are we suffering, but now we have sleep deprivation. He can't sleep. Sleeping is robbed. Every moment that he's enduring, there's raw flesh being rubbed. He's tossing to and fro. There's no rest. Every part of his body's covered in balls. He's itching. He's burning. There's maggots on him. The smell. There's no relief. Burning, throbbing, stabbing pain. He said in verse 30, chapter 30, verse 30, I quoted earlier, he said his bones burned with heat. I mean, he feels like his bones are on fire. The inflammation and the fever make him feel like his bones are on fire. The language of pierced, I mentioned it earlier, that's like getting stabbed. His bones feel like they've been stabbed. Has anybody ever had your bone actually take a hit or be stabbed? I'm going to tell you a funny story. I don't remember when this was. My wife might can tell you, but I was working on side by side on the side of a hill, and I was cutting. Actually, matter of fact, with this knife right here, my handy dandy wonderful knife my granddaddy gave me. And I was cutting with this, and when I cut, I got off balance and fell, and when I tried to catch myself, I stabbed myself with my own knife. Everybody else probably thought it was hilarious, except for me. Because I stabbed my knife into my leg all the way down to this bend in the blade, and it hit my bone, and it sent a shock through me. I felt it my entire body. My ears were tingling. It was an amazing thing. And then my knife is just staying there in my leg, and we're all looking at it like, hey, what we do now? Let's pull it out. By the way, Denver, just so you know, I pulled the knife out, doctored myself, and then done the rest of my farm work for the day because I'm not a sissy. So you know.
We rode horses that day.
We did. Well,
after that.
Yeah,
it was
then
just
I
me
went
and
to
you.
horses too because I'm not a sissy. So you know. So I was tough, buddy, and the next day I couldn't walk. But anyway, I stabbed myself in the bone, and it sent a shock through me like I've never experienced. Job's talking about being stabbed in the bone, the intolerable itch, the irritation. Notice what he says in in verse 8, this is what I'm getting to. I'm painting a picture for you now. Verse 8, what does it say? And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal. And he sat down among the ashes. Let me explain something to you what's going on. His entire body's in pain. He's itching. He's dealing with a smell. He's dealing with a fever. He can't find any relief. Here's how he finds relief. He takes a potsherd, which is a broken piece of pottery, and he is scraping his body. That's how he's getting relief. He says, I'd rather scrape it off. The pain of scraping his body. The boils have intense pain. You ever get a bump somewhere and it hurts real bad, it's a little bitty bump? He's covered with them. So big that they're bursting. And what he says is, I had rather take this and scrape my body because it feels better. He's scraping off the dried pus, the maggots, like his entire body. These thick crusts and scabs that's on him, he's tearing them away. Could you imagine? The only way you get relief is to scrape your body down with broken pottery. Now, keep in mind, he's covered in black, which is ashes, which is what used to be. What's he scraping himself with? A broken piece of pottery that used to be something that he used to use. That pottery used to have, that potsherd used to hold something, food or liquid, wine, water, something in his life. That's broken. He's using what used to be, scraping off what once was off his body. The unrelenting itch and crawling sensation demanded inside himself, I got to get rid of it. So he starts scraping himself. Could you imagine the mess that turned into? Now you incorporate breaking of the skin with these boils. He's in bad shape. The scraping brings sharp pain, but he'd rather deal with that than the itching and the burning and the maggots and all that stuff. Now I've been real plain with you today because I'm trying to paint a picture for you. I'm trying to help you understand where Job's at. Last thing I want to notice this morning is the humiliation of his condition. The humiliation. He's sitting among the ashes. Now, I don't know how much time has passed since the house fell on his kids. And right now, the Bible don't tell us. I'm assuming probably the next day. I mean, I don't know. Satan don't like to wait on you. He don't want to give you no time to recover. He wants to hit you hard again. But if you would say we can guess, we can say this is my opinion. 2 days before he was at the altar praying for his kids, and he's looking over his empire, praying for his children. Before that day's over with, he has nothing. The next day he loses his health. And what's he sitting in? He's sitting in what used to be, looking at what once was, thinking about how his life is upside down right now. He's sitting in the ashes. Ashes are a sign of mourning. And often it's the heap. It's the, Job went from the greatest man in the world at that time, the greatest man in the East, to the ash heap. He's fallen from the very top to the very bottom. He went from honor to the dunghill. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 7 and 8 says, the Lord maketh poor and maketh rich. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and he lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill. Job is on the dunghill. There's poor and there's rich. Job was above rich, and now he's below poor. It's an amazing thing. Job's now like the beggar. He's covered in sores, and he's scraping himself, and he's sitting in the ashes. Now I want to preview something. I'd like to preach it, but y'all couldn't stand it because it might take, we might be here for another hour or so. But I want to preview something. Faith in a broken body. Faith in a broken body. I ain't gonna talk about his wife today. I don't need to do any marriage counseling after service here, but we'll go to verse number 10. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Now his wife just said, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? His wife is sitting there watching him scrape himself. She hasn't lost her health. He has. She's lost 10 children and everything in her life, and she's watching him sit there in the ashes and scrape himself with a broken pottery. And what does she say to him? Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? She's asking him, why? Curse God and die. That's what she says. And then he responds to her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women. He didn't call her a fool. He said, You talking like a fool. What's his response? What is Job's response to this? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? What's his response to his wife? How can you expect to receive all this good from God and not receive any bad? What does that verse, how's that verse end? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Now, I'm telling you something now. Job's in bad shape. He ain't sinning. Carly, will you play something for me, please? This entire section of verse 7 and 8, these two verses, it does not record Job's words. Doesn't record his words. But the Spirit sums it up in verse number 10 when he says, In all this did not Job sin with his lips. He said nothing negative about God. I can't imagine. I know that I can sneeze too hard about 4 times, about pass out, and be like, my God, what's going on here? We're talking about Job's situation. We're talking about Job and his suffering. Habakkuk 3:17 and 18. Although the fig tree shall not blossom, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. Job was rejoicing in the joy of the Lord. You say, what's joyful? Job is not joyful because of his circumstances. He's joyful because of God's position and God's grace in his life. Job never cursed God. I'm going to tell you something. Job chapter 1 verse 1 through Job chapter 2 verse 8. We've walked with Job from wealth down to waste. From honor to the ash heap. Pile of ashes is all he's got. From strength to sores. Now here's where we're getting to. The question's not about Job, it's about you. It's about you. When your body betrays you, when sleep leaves you, when the diagnosis changes your future, when pain becomes your daily life, what comes out of your mouth? What comes out of your mouth? Is it Job chapter 2 verse 10? And all this did not Job sin with his lips? Is that what comes out of your mouth? Oh me. Oh me. I'm going to tell you something. You can be faithful and still suffer a great deal in your body. Sickness is not a sign that you're in sin. Now, it can be used to get your attention. God himself said that Job suffers without cause. In chapter 2, verse 3. He said he didn't deserve this. He didn't earn this. Physical pain can dominate your life, but it don't have to destroy your faith. It don't have to destroy your faith. Job's body's covered in sores, but in all this, did not Job sin with his lips. Now, I want you to think about what Job's going through now. He's sitting in the ashes. He's black from the ash. He's rolled around in it. Remember, he can't get comfortable. He ain't got no bed. All he's got is ashes. Where's his comfort coming from? Gonna go get in a bed? Ain't got no bed. Gonna go take a bath? Where's he gonna take a bath? Ain't got nothing. He's got ash laying on the ground. Balls, fever, sharp stabbing pain, the maggots, the smell, unrelenting pain. In all this, when it says in all this, it's talking about what I just described to you. In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Man. Faith that worships with the tears. Go back with me. Go back with me. Chapter 1, verse 20. This is where he's lost everything. Then Job arose. Remember, I think he's at the altar. And then he stands. Rent his mantle. That's where he pulled his robe apart. Shaved his head. Fell down upon the ground and worshipped. And said, who's standing here? There's 4 servants and his wife. That's who's standing. That's the only thing he's got left. We're talking about somebody that had thousands and thousands and thousands of people under his care. He's got 4 servants and his wife. Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's what he said. If you can worship when everything's torn out of your life and torn apart, you can also trust God when you got sores. When you got sores. I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to reflect on these questions, and then I'm going to be done. I'm going to ask you some questions this morning. They ain't for nobody but you. Remember we talking about in the book of Jonah, we're looking in a mirror. Well, this is a mirror type moment. Book of Job. When pain enters your life, does your worship disappear? Do you measure God's goodness by how comfortable you are? God's goodness has nothing to do with how you feel. If your health was stripped away tomorrow, would you still praise or would you pout? Just going to put this in there. I'm probably pouting. I'm just being honest with you. Is your walk with God strong enough that you can endure some suffering? Or does it fall apart? Do you know why Job could say, naked came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither? The Lord gave, and the Lord taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Do you know why Job could say that? Because he served God for who he is, not what he gave him. Do you serve God for who he is or for what he does for you? When the night stretches long, there's no rest, there's no peace, there's no joy, you can't find it. Remember, joy's in your heart. You just got to look for it. Do you turn to the Lord in prayer, or do you get bitter and say, Lord, why are you doing this to me? Have you allowed smaller inconveniences in your life to produce a negative attitude that then in turn produces negative comments that then in turn takes away the joy that you have in the Lord? I've done it. Hey, y'all know why I can ask these questions? Because this is what I do. Okay? Yeah. Hey, everybody in here might be like, hey, that ain't me. Well, I'm preaching myself, and that's fine. I've experienced these emotions. It's that snowball effect, right? One thing goes bad, you get mad. Then two things go bad, then three, then four, then five, and then it just rolls on and on and on. It gets so big you can't handle it. Then it's like an avalanche. It just overtakes you. And it started out with one little thing. Now, when you got that bad attitude and you're looking at things in the negative way, are you getting closer to God or further away? When you get further away because of the bad things that happen because you got a bad attitude, who's winning, God or Satan? What does Satan want to do? He wants to separate you from your worship. You got to get closer to God in affliction, not further away. Here's another oh me moment. When others watch you suffer, when they see you going through something, what do they see? They see somebody that loves God, somebody that says, blessed be the name of the Lord, or do they say, well, they ain't no different than me? When you suffer, do you turn on the Lord or you turn to the Lord? I'm going to tell you something. God has a purpose for whatever suffering you're going through. There's a purpose behind it. Job lost comfort, but he didn't lose his integrity. He lost sleep, but he didn't lose his surrender. He still worshiped. Job lost his health, but he's still worshiping. It don't matter. Is your worship based on what you see around you, or is your worship based on who God is? That's what we're getting down to today. Some of you are in the ash heap right now. It happens. Or you might be one phone call away from it. Somebody in here, let me rephrase that. Everybody in here is going to go through a terrible, painful, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual trauma in their life. Everybody is. We got to make a decision on how we're going to respond. But I'm going to tell you something that'll go a long ways for how you're going to respond when you're going through it, is you got to make the decision now that you're worshiping God for who He is, not what's around you. See, I want y'all to understand something. Job is in the ashes. He has nothing. Remember when it talks about the 7,000 sheep getting burned up by the fire, and it burned everything? That was his ability to worship because the sheep was the sacrifice. He's in ashes. So where the altar was, look, this is my opinion again. You ain't got to believe me at all. But in my opinion, Job's at the altar. And that altar is overlooking his empire. And it's beautiful. And his kids, he can see all of his kids' houses. And he's worshiping. And now when he's on his knees in the ashes, there's nothing. It's all gone. So is he worshiping because of what he sees or because who God is? Because when he looks out, he sees nothing. We got to be like Job. You got to settle it now before the boils come, before the disease comes, before the phone call comes and wrecks your day, before you have a sleepless night, before you lose things that you feel like you got to have in your life. Job chapter 13, verse 15, Job throws us an anchor for us to use in our life. Job 13:15 says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That's an anchor you can use in your life to keep you where you're supposed to be. That's the kind of attitude we got to have. Because faith that only works when you're comfortable is not faith. It's convenience. What matters is the faith you got when it's not convenient. When you don't feel good, all these things are going on in your life. Life is hard. And you say, blessed be the name of the Lord. That's what we got to do. Faith that clings to God while scraping the sores while you're sitting in the ashes, now that's something right there. That's integrity. That's worship. That's glorifying God. When your body breaks, will your faith break? Job's taught us something here. And I recommend that you get your priorities in order now before the sickness comes, before the sores are there, before your life falls apart. You got something on your heart this morning, come pray.